Welcome back. It's priest time in the Scholomance Academy review, preview, cards, valuing, Lightforge Arena tier list thing. I'm Adwicto.
This is Merps. Okay, we're gonna go through fast. Speed is the name of the game.
We're going to go through fast because priest, spoiler alert, sucks. We just went over Warlock that sucks. Well, priest is going to suck. But don't worry, we put the best classes in the end. Brittle Bone Destroyer, same card as the last one for Warlock. This is Priest. It's a 179. It's not as good as Warlock because you have to heal your face, and that's not as good as the Warlock hero power generally, which you just kind of do. So yeah, if you heal your face, you can't heal the board. Otherwise, really good card. Brittle Bone Destroyer is the 4-mana 3/3, where if you change health during the turn, you can destroy a minion.
Still very good.
Still very good.
Still very good.
The next one goes all the way down to a 130. Remember, this is the set that has really good class cards. You guys saw what Demon Hunter was working with. Now your second best class card is a 1-30. And it's
no. But yeah, relatively it is not as good.
And it's Draconic Studies, which is 1 mana, discover a dragon. Your next one costs 1 less. Like, yes, we're all thinking Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and like all these ridiculous dragons. But dragons are bad too sometimes. And, you're spending 1 mana to discover a dragon. It's not that good.
Yeah, you do bank the
You
mana,
get it back.
but yeah. Once again, it's it is what it is. It's fair, 130. And I think some people are just so scarred by the current meta. They think all dragons are good. There are some pretty bad dragons, or like there are some dragons that are just okay-ish, right? So the 130, yeah, it's raised up by the Twin Tyrants, the Evasive Worms, etc., etc. It's brought down by not just bad dragons, but some dragons that I think people look at and they're like, oh, this is okay, right? Like Evasive Feywing. It's just okay. There are some just okay-ish dragons.
Like Big Ol' Whelp. Like, if you get a Big Ol' Whelp out of this, Big Ol' Whelp is rated like a 120 something. This is a 130. So you actually had to bank a mana or something to get a less efficient dragon, right? And Big Ol' Whelp is decent.
Yeah, but we're looking at this and saying if you grab a Big Ol' Whelp, you're lower. Like Big Ol' Whelp, if you picked it, you're essentially lowering the expected value that you're getting, right? Like Big Ol' Whelp is a semi-miss on here, and a lot of times Big Ol' Whelp is you're gonna pick it, so that's where it's at. It's not super duper high. Like you need to basically guarantee a really good effect in order to be much higher than a 130.
Yep. Next up is Wave of Apathy. It's a Paladin Priest card. 1 mana. Set the attack of all enemy minions to 1 until your next turn. We've seen this before. This is Curse of Weakness from Warlock, except now we're setting to 1 instead of subtracting attacks and we'll never get to 0, but it's 1 mana instead of God knows how much mana it takes for the Curse of Weakness card.
So this is one that I was not as high on. You were super high on this one, and I don't know. This is one I'm still a little bit like, about. I'm not sure.
Okay, so I freaking love this card because I remember how ridiculous Curse of Weakness is, and I'm just salivating at the idea of being able to Curse of Weakness stuff for 1 mana and have so much more mana to put stuff out. Because remember, if you have the board and they have the board, which is going to be in most scenarios when you have a dragged out game, and in this expansion, with so many cards with higher health than attack, it's going to be a dragged out game, and so many cards just like kind of in general. In a dragged out game when both sides have things on the board, this is insane tempo. Now, in the flip situation where things are going poorly for you, this is like a really cheap Frost Nova, where you're preventing so much damage to your face for the next turn, and then you get to set up. So, in so many situations, this is a very playable card. And that's what you want for a utility card. You want a utility card that's good utility in every situation, almost every situation, and then ridiculously great in certain ones. So this is oftentimes either life-saving or a huge tempo swing. So 130. Like, I will try to stick this card in every one of my priest decks at least. For paladins, if I go too aggro, maybe I don't need this deck. Maybe I don't need this card. But if I'm more mid rangey, I will also want this card in my deck.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's 130. It's not like insanely high, right? This is where like Smug Senior is in Priest and like Dollar and Crusader. Smug Senior, by the way, really low in Priest because Priest draws way too many cards.
Yeah, I think that kind of makes sense. All right. Next we have Gift of Luminance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gift of Luminance. 3 mana, give a minion Divine Shield, then summon a 1/1 copy of it. That's
Paladin Priest again?
Paladin Priest once again, and this is a 120. That's pretty good. So look, you always get minimum an additional Argent Squire, right? So first you give something Divine Shield, and then you're summoning a 1/1 copy of it, which means you always get an Argent Squire, and then if it has any beneficial effects, it obviously carries over any death rattles, any sort of like, I don't know, whatever effect there is.
Yeah, and it should. You shouldn't target a minion without a beneficial effect.
Right.
Unless you absolutely need to, right? Because it's 3 mana. It's not like just a Hand of Protection. So you've basically taken an off-curve Argent Squire, stuck it onto a Hand of Protection. Now remember, that's 2 cards for 2 mana, which is the equivalent of 1 card for 3 mana. So you're at the correct amount of mana for that. But an off-curve Argent Squire and a Hand of Protection are both bad cards. So to make this into an actual good card, you really do need to get a little more. And it's a 120, which is a pretty good card, like an above average card, because you're expected to put it onto something that actually has an ability, so that your 1/1 Argent Squire can make that ability impactful. What you want on someone with an ability, at least one that's not a death rattle, is something that requires multiple hits, and that's what Argent Squire does. So death rattle, good. Just any kind of ability, also made way better by how much it survives.
Okay, cool. That's Gift of Luminance. What's the next card?
Next card is Cabal Acolyte. 4 mana of 2/6 taunt. This one's epic. Spellburst. Gain control of a random enemy minion with 2 or less attack.
It's a 115. So what's the score of? I don't know. So if it didn't have the Spellburst, what would it be?
Oh, 2/6 taunt? I don't know,
Yeah.
like a 90? 95? Like probably just a 90.
So once again, it's like, it is powerful, right? Like, it could be powerful. Sorry. It could be powerful. The problem is you need a spell, and we know your deck isn't just chock full of these spells. They need to have something out there. You need to be able to play on the same turn. Otherwise, they're definitely going to try to kill it if they have the ability to. I mean, let's just compare it with like Cabal Shadow Priest, right? Cabal Shadow Priest is a 117. And part of the reason is Cabal Shadow Priest, just you're giving up quite a few stats there, right? You're not giving up as much stats here, but you also don't get the battle cry.
Yeah.
It's not a battle cry, it's a spell burst. So it's a give and take, right? And Cabal Shadow Priest.
Yeah, this is one of the things that like you can't just like put it on the board and then use your spell burst later. Your opponent's not going to play into it. Like, yeah. You're triggering on this turn, or your opponents are going to just slightly inefficiently trade to the extent that they can.
That's the problem, right? Like, there's no sort of surprise potential unless you're doing it on the same turn. And a lot of times you can't just afford to hold this. Like, if this is your 4-drop, you're going to play it. And then if they were going to play like their 2/7, right? They're stupid old waste of Snapshot. And now they're just not going to play it. Now, if they have any other option, they're going to play that instead. So yeah, it's got pop-off potential. It's got game-winning potential. But it's just on average not that high. 115. Next we have Devout Pupil. It's another epic card. It's a Paladin Priest. 6 mana, 4/5 Divine Shield Taunt. Oh man, where have we seen this one before? Cost 1 less for each spell you've cast on friendly characters this turn. So
This game.
it's a
This game.
yeah. Sorry, this game, not this turn. Oh, yikes. This game. So look, obvious follow-up question: where's Sunwalker? Sunwalker is a 90 for priest. This is a 114. It's gaining a lot for that ability. Now, that's also because you do have spells that you're going to want to target on your own minions. So this is going to be cheaper.
If
Not
this is
always.
even 1 mana cheaper, especially if this is 1 mana cheaper on curve because you buff something on your way to turn 6, that's freaking amazing to get this out at the 5 mana.
Right. But won't always happen.
Yeah, I mean, usually won't happen. You don't have that many buffs.
Yeah, you don't have that many buffs, and you have to cast a spell on your own. So, like, you don't have that many spells in general, and of the amount of spells that you have, it's gonna like a decent amount of them are gonna be like Nova, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, all of those things. So yeah, there's the Grave Runes and all of that stuff, but the amount of times that you're going to draw it and play it before you're able to play this card, it's not super high.
But a card is being added to the mix, and Devoted Pupil, by the way, is epic. Cabal Acolyte is also epic. But one card that's being added to the mix is a rare card. It is Power Word Feast at 114. And Power Word Feast says give a minion +2/+2, so you can do the 2 mana buff your minions +2/+2, and your priest. So buffs mean, like health buffs especially, mean a bit more because you can heal your guys back up. And it has a bonus ability where you restore it to full health at the end of this turn. So only on the turn that you cast it on, you fully heal the guy at the very end. It's got a little bit of a kicker bonus. 114 is around a Yeti level, and it's one more card into the priest buffing pool where Devoted Pupil can kind of shine. But it's also like buffs and priests are just good. So I always like seeing a buff and priest in terms of priest power levels. This one is just like very fair.
Yep. It's also just once again a cool idea. Like the flavor of the card is pretty funny. Okay. Next we have
Initiation. I
oh,
wanted to make a point, so I skipped Initiation because Devoted Pupil, Initiation, and Power Word Feast are all the same score. Initiation is also 114. Deal 4 damage to a minion. If that kills it, summon a new copy. So
I think some people might think that this should be higher, but it is a little bit awkward. It's not the easiest card to use.
yeah, you're only getting 4 damage for 6 mana. That's a 3 mana card, and it's not a particularly great 3 mana card to deal 4 damage. So you're using the other 3 mana to summon a new copy of the minion, which means this minion better be bigger than a 4/4. Which means that you're going to have to hold this card for a lot longer. If the minion's bigger than 4/4, that means something else needed to have hit it first. Like, there's just so many conditionals that get attached to this that you may be thinking, like, oh, I could just summon my opponent's giant, ridiculous big thing. And, with this 6 mana card that also deals damage. You could. But your opponent has to have that giant, ridiculous big thing. That thing has to get hurt to a point where 4 damage will kill it. You have to have this card. Who knows how long this card's been sitting in your hand for? It's just a lot of conditionals on this one. That's what drags it down. When you do get it to trigger on the right card, this is game winning.
Yeah. But I think some people look at it and they might think on our list it would be like a 150 plus. But too many things drag it down.
Yeah, it's a very conditional card. I think when you start using it, you'll realize how conditional it is, or maybe you won't realize how conditional it is, and it'll just be like in your hand the whole time, and you won't think that it's dragging you down.
Yep. Okay. Next we have Frazzled Freshman. Frazzle Freshman, it's a 1 mana 1/4. Done. It's a 108. Pretty
Bone
good.
Chewer Vanguard is the same score.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, if you look at Battle Mage, right? So Blazing Battle Mage is a 97. 97. So this is like more than 10 points higher, which makes sense. And not only does it have uh, one more stat point, but it's got something that priests really like, a really good body to place buffs on. For example, Power Word Feast
Mm.
into like Gift of Luminance, stuff like that. It just starts to snowball. The problem is it still is kind of small, so if you draw it later on, not great.
Flesh Giant is next. It's an epic card. We went over it with Warlock. The 8 mana 8/8 costs 1 less each time your hero's health is changed during your turns. 100. It's Burly Shovel Fist is 100 in Priest. So it's fine.
Okay.
Raise Dead is next. 96. Another card we covered in Warlock. Deal 3 damage to your hero. Return 2 friendly minis that die this game to your hand. All fine. Like, nothing to write home about.
That's it. Legendary time.
Oh, are we done? Okay. So priests don't have a lot of great cards, but I guess they don't have bad cards either. They have a bunch of like good to like okay cards. Let's look at legendaries. Going from the bottom up. Mind Render Illusia, 111. It is a 2 mana 1/3 battle cry. Swap hands and decks with your opponent until your next turn. So you basically swap back when your next turn starts. It means you get to play with their cards, they get to play with your cards. It's otherwise a 2 mana 1/3. You're obviously going to try to send them pretty crappy cards that don't screw whatever you have going on, and then you hope to get them and then be able to pick off all their really, really, really good cards. Except you can't play any of their really, really good cards unless they're 8 mana or below, because you've already spent 2 mana on this card. And yeah, the ability's worth something. It's that kind of glide like ability, right? Where you're getting rid of your trash, you're taking a risk of that your opponents will have some good things and some bad things. Except whereas in glide, you kind of make them chuck everything. Here, you get to pick which ones you get rid of, right? By playing them. And you get double the value because you're playing them, right? So that not only do they lose the card when they get it back, but on top of that, you got the extra value of playing the whatever great card they have.
Okay. Next we have High Abyss Angora. It's a 4 mana 3/6 spell burst. Cast a spell from your deck. Targets this if possible. It's a 121. So look, it's definitely getting some points for this effect. It's just not always a pure positive. Sometimes you're gonna have spells that make it really awkward. Well, like first of all, you're not always going to have the ability to spell burst, right? We've talked about it many times. And then sometimes, even if you have like some buffs, you're like, oh man, I really want to buff. You're also going to have that like Shadow Word Pain, and you're like, okay, well that sucks. Like I can't actually get that benefit because I can't risk killing this with the Shadow Word Pain. So it comes in at 121.
Yep.
That's it.
And then finally, the high card we talked about in Warlock, it is Disciplinarian Gambling. Disciplinarian Gambling is a legendary 4 mana 3/6. After you play a minion, destroy it and summon a 4/4 failed student. It's a thing.
It's 140. It's lower here, understandably so. You're going to have less small minions in Priest than in Warlock. So instead of a 150, it's a 140 here.
Yep. All right. So what do you think about Priest overall?
They kind of got a little bit left behind in terms of the amount of good cards. In some expansions, getting a 180 card followed up by a 130 card, you'd be like, okay, this class did fine. They did fine for themselves. Not in Scholomance, but priests always do have tools, and I will say some of their cards that they gained are just really good for the arena in terms of starting the snowball and then tempoing from there. Priests have become a little bit more paladin-esque in in the way that they play, just because of stuff like the freshman, and then Power Word Feast into Gift of Luminance, and then it works well with the stuff that they have already in their
Mm-hmm.
toolkit, right? So like, you have the freshman, and they have Apotheosis. They have all of these ways for them to keep the train going, and then they can play the Temple Enforcer on 5, for example. So yeah, they didn't get insanely powerful tools, but they got stuff that allows them to play in a style that they like, and it complements the cards that they already have.
Yep. I agree. I have nothing more to add to that. That was a pretty thorough analysis. So yeah, so that's Priest. I am. I don't know. I think there's enough here. I'd definitely be interested in trying the class, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing anything crazy that they weren't already doing. Priests are right now micro adjusted, like macro. They're actually adjusted kind of high, and if that continues, it may be okay. But this is just a class that's normally about having a good amount of like card draw and all that, and then this meta makes everybody there, so it kind of neutralizes the priest's advantage. But at the same time, the priest does want to go like really, really slow, and everyone's going really, really slow now, so their old stuff may be better. It's kind of a tough call. I don't think, like, unlike Warlock, I don't think they're like a clear super loser, but I definitely do agree with you that I think they're like left behind a little by the rest of the set.
Yeah.
All right. Any shout outs for the end of this this section?
No, I'm gonna be greedy. No shout outs for this section.
Okay. Moving on quickly to the next one. We're gonna do Paladin. Let's see what a good class actually looks like after this whole Warlock Priest nonsense. See you guys after this.